Hours away left of 1999, it felt like the entire world held their breath, waiting for the world to come crashing down because of a computer bug. I was convinced I was not going to live to see the new year, and wished it was for the same reason the rest of the world was worrying about. On that night, I found myself in a dimly lit warehouse, tied to a chair, desperately trying to get out of this situation alive. My father was a no-good son of a bitch, who brought down everyone who ever came into contact with him. I was glad to be away from him the moment I was able. The only thing he ever gave me was a bit of advice that kept me alive during my adult life. Doesn't matter if you have jack shit. You just need to convince people you have something they need. And that's exactly what I did. I conned people thinking I was the right person for the job, faking skills to get paid until I learned said skill, then got bored of the job and moved on. Or got caught and fired. Soon I found myself not able to find respectable work that paid enough to keep me living. Slowly, I started doing more and more little jobs on the wrong side of the law. It was a creeping downward slide. I didn't notice just how far I'd gotten until I hit rock bottom. I was running too many plans. Too many promises to too many people. It only took one thing to slip up for me to land in hot water. And it finally happened. I was jumped while walking to a bar, beaten and blindfolded. The long trip spent in the trunk of a car, unable to get free. I tried sweet-talking my captors, giving them more promises I swore I could keep, until I was forced into a rough wooden chair and strapped down. The moment the blindfold came off, I knew I wasn't going to leave that building in one piece. I have many bosses, but the man before me was the toughest and meanest of the bunch. My sweet-talking skills may have gotten me the job at first, but it was not good enough of a skill to get out of the mess I was in. I owed him money I did not have. That was it. That was all the facts. I should just accept it. But I couldn't. I needed to believe in a good outcome, or else I really had no chance. No matter what I promised and said in my sweetest of tones, I was still worked over. I was alive, so thought I must have something of worth. I feared what would happen when they found out I had no girlfriends or sisters I could sell out, no hidden money, and just a crappy car to my name. I didn't even own my own fridge. If I ever moved out of my apartment, it would stay with my penny-pinching landlord. The only way they could make money off of me was to sell my organs. My blood type was a rare universal kind that meant anyone could use it for transfusions. In my darker times, I sold my blood to get by, and that's how I knew. I wondered if that meant my organs could be used by more people, and therefore would be worth more. I did not want to find out. Boss, I keep telling you, I didn't lose your money. I just invested it. If you give me to the end of the month, I'll get it back in triple. If you off me tonight, you're really getting nothing, I said, as coolly as someone who was strapped to a chair with a broken nose and a broken set of fingers could speak. That massive man of pure, intimidating muscle did not look moved by my offer. Even with all the pain I was in, I felt annoyed. Are you going to kill me or not? Torturing me isn't going to get your money back, so just let me go or be done with it. I don't think he's worth the time. You should just feed him to that thing and be done with it, one of the grunts said, looking at me in disgust. What thing? I knew the boss I made the foolish mistake of borrowing money from liked cats. Big cats. No one knew the number of illegal black market pets he owned. He liked them scattered through the country for safekeeping. Honestly, being eaten by a lion or a tiger was almost neat enough of a way to be killed that I almost didn't mind. Almost. The boss looked over at the man who suggested it, then back at me, deciding my worth. Triple, I stammered, but deep down I knew what my future held. Yeah, I'm done with him. Bring that thing in. Make sure there isn't a mess left behind, the boss said, giving a wave and walking away, completely ignoring me, begging for him to just stay and listen. I was frantic, almost out of my mind from fear. I started talking to the two men who stayed behind, while the third went off to get the beast that was about to make me a nice dinner. Come on, don't do this. I wasn't kidding about the money. If I could get this much in just a few days, just think of how much more I could get in the future. You won't need to work for the boss anymore. Think about it, right? In a few months, you can retire somewhere nice and hot, and the girls are dirt cheap. Isn't that the best idea you've ever heard? I kept chattering on, hoping that if I threw everything to the wall, something just might stick. When the other man came back, dragging a creature on a chain, it shut me up. Nothing had ever shut me up in my entire life. But this did. I stared, body turned to ice and mouth open mid-word, at the monster that had been literally dragged into the light. It was double the size of the lion I expected to see, dark and, strangely enough, flickering. It walked on all fours, massive claws leaving deep tears in the solid concrete. The chains around its neck looked perfectly real and solid, but this thing kept going in and out of focus, like I was never meant to see it. As if those chains not only were dragging it along towards me, but also dragging it into our world. It fought hard against the chains that left a deep wound where they touched its skin. The beast let out a loud roar of protest, but that too sounded unreal and out of focus. It had a mane of dark fur that at some point must have been a proud feature of glossy black. Now it was just matted and dull. The sheet was over top of its head, leaving only a snout of jagged teeth exposed. Seeing the countless scars etched into the poor thing's body, I felt as if we were both in the same boat, caught and tortured by these bastards. After seeing it, I was still afraid of whatever supernatural creature that had just been dragged in front of me, but I also felt sorry for it. I wanted to do something. Anything to help it, even though I was not in a position to do so.
Come on, you overrated mute. Behave. We have a nice snack for you. Eat 'em up and you can go back to your cage.
The man grunted, trying to drag the thing even closer. With a quick jerk of its head, the beast tore the chain from the man's hands for a few seconds. The other two ran in and helped him get the monster under control. It shrieked in protest, just wanting to be free from them. One peeled away to grab my chair from behind to drag me closer. The chair legs made a horrible sound across the ground like nails on a chalkboard. I tried making it difficult for him, but in the end couldn't do a damn thing, as my chair was placed within reach of the dark monster. The monster stopped struggling when I got closer. It could smell my blood. I knew it. Its nose got right up close, nearly touching me, as I felt hot puffs of air ruffle my hair. I expected it to smell horrible, but oddly enough, it smelled almost minty. It would only take one bite to end me. I really hoped that my head got taken first, and not my legs to suffer through being eaten alive. Suddenly, the idea of being chomped down by some powerful animal didn't feel like a neat way to go at all. It just felt like the end. Drips of drool came from its mouth and dropped onto my jeans, soaking them through. It made my skin crawl. I tried backing up the chair, only to see a man was holding it in place.
Come on now, eat 'em. That's an order.
Those words made the monster tense. Before, it just looked curious about me, but now it looked like a cat ready to pounce. It now had orders and needed to obey them. I was hoping that wet feeling was because it drooled on me, and not because I pissed myself seeing the sudden change. I was so out of my mind in fear, I didn't even stop and think what the hell this thing even was. A crushing force came down on each of my arms strapped to the chair, as the beast placed huge claws on them to stand up. Those countless teeth just above my head, and jaw opening ready to take one massive bite. In my last moments, I wanted to pray, but couldn't find any kind of thoughts in my head. I took a large inhale, waiting for death to come. To my shock, I didn't get my head torn off. Instead, the monster turned that deadly set of teeth on the man holding my chair from behind. The dark fur covered my vision. I only guessed he'd gotten his head bitten off instead of myself when screams of surprise and fear came from the other man. A flurry of motion started. The beast was dragged back, the claws digging into the flesh of my arms, leaving cuts, but also snapping the restraints keeping me down. My body moved before my mind did. My bleeding arms shot down, trying to get my legs free, as I kept darting my head up to see the other two men trying to get control of the monster. One pulled a gun from who knows where and started shooting. The monster took some hits, but darted away, so the one holding the chains received some friendly fire. The man collapsed, and the dark creature was free. It thrashed, slamming into wooden boxes surrounding us. Packing peanuts, coffee grounds, and what I guessed to be bundles of drugs poured out. I really didn't care. I just had to get the hell out of there. The straps on my legs felt nearly impossible to undo. Because of the noise, more people came rushing in trying to catch the monster. Soon they knew it wasn't possible and started to shoot at it. The entire scene was chaos, and I was trapped in the middle of it. The gunshots going off were deafening. I'm sure the monster was making noise of its own, but I couldn't hear anything beyond the gunfire ringing in my ear. Men were getting ripped apart while they tried shooting the creature down. Wooden crates exploded into flying pieces, almost as dangerous as the bullets. It was a miracle I wasn't shot when I was just sitting out in the open trying to get free. Another miracle happened when I got my legs out of the straps and started to try and run off into a direction away from the bullets and the beast. My luck ended there. I started running on unsteady feet towards a tower of crates to hide behind. A man turned the corner into the fight, knocking me over. He was middle-aged, with white hair and no weapon. I was so pissed he kept me from escaping, I burned the image of his face into my mind as I fell. Then the beast came closer to me. It was only a few feet away, but that meant bullets in that direction. What came next made it feel like everything just froze. I was glued to the ground, on my back looking in the direction of the monster. The man with the white hair had his arm outstretched, a face of concern and worry, and the monster with its head turned to look at something that was just tossed towards it. I didn't hear the explosion from my ears already being shot. I felt the shockwave, and my head hit against the concrete floor so hard it knocked me out. There was no way to know how long I was out for. A few seconds or a few minutes. My ears rang, and my body was so stiff I couldn't move. So I just looked around to see what had happened. Debris from the small explosion was scattered around. The overhead light flickered, making it hard to see clearly. By how much my head hurt, I was thankful for the brief stint of darkness. In the small few seconds of light, I saw the white-haired man go over to the creature, carefully removing the chains. The monster looked as bad as I felt. Both back legs had been torn off. Countless injuries and bullet holes marred the dark fur. Even as I was on the ground, unable to move my body and head pounding, I felt bad for the thing. Whatever it was. I didn't feel right it was harmed so badly and most likely was going to die.
Don't move. I'll do what I can.
I was shocked when I heard the man's voice. I shouldn't have been able to hear anything so clearly after that gun battle and explosion. As much as I disliked him from knocking me over and causing me to get up in that shockwave, I had to admit he sounded like a nice person. He sounded so worried as if he were talking to an old friend.
Do not bother with me, my king. This was my mistake. Wash your hands of this.
The monster spoke. Tears came to my eyes. I couldn't stop them. That terrifying yet injured creature almost sounded like a hurt child trying to act brave.
That man, he was taken like myself. Can you save him?
That was strange. Was that beast talking about me? I tried sitting up to get a better look, but my body didn't move. The white-haired man looked over in my direction. I could have sworn he clicked his tongue when he looked at me.
No, he should already be dead. Humans cannot heal from vast injuries like that. Unlike you. If we could just get some virgin blood or flesh to patch you up, then maybe...
The man trailed off, sounding as if his hope for the dark creature living was fading when he saw just how badly it was hurt. I didn't want to think about what he had just said about me. How I had less hope than the beast before me. Using every ounce of willpower I had, I looked down at myself. And he was right. I really should have been dead already. My legs twisted and broke, arm torn off, and chest full of bleeding, ragged holes. How in the hell was I still alive? I tore my eyes away from my broken body and looked over at the two in front of me. I really wasn't going to make it out of here alive, but I could still do something. I tried speaking, only to cough and nearly choke on my blood. I couldn't speak. Maybe they could sense it, though. The embarrassing fact that, after living a life of crime, I was still untouched in a sense. If they needed virgin blood, they could take mine. You can laugh at the idea of me being so old-fashioned, of saving myself for marriage. The thing I discovered about my life early on is almost everything is out of my control. I was never going to live an easy life born the way I was, into the family I was raised in. No matter how hard I tried, my type never got anywhere in life. It was all beyond my control. I was desperate, trying to find things about myself that were entirely up to my own decisions. Not sleeping around was one of them. If you want it, take it, I thought, hoping they could hear me the same way I could hear them. I felt cold. My eyelids were fluttering shut, no matter how hard I tried to keep them open. Damn, I wish I wasn't so damn cold at the end. That was it. I was going to die because I listened to my father's advice on life. He really never did leave me anything worthwhile, now did he? I let myself be taken over by endless darkness, expecting to never wake up again. For some reason, I did wake up. I had to be dreaming. My body felt stiff but whole. I didn't know where I was. I didn't recognize the room in the slightest. A hospital room would make sense. Not a high-tech penthouse bedroom. I didn't move for the longest time, trying to understand what the hell had happened. Did I dream the entire thing? That must be it. There was no way I could have survived those injuries. And yet, it felt too real to just be a dream. Sitting up in the bed, I looked down to see I was dressed in very silky and very expensive sleepwear. I could save for a year and still not be able to afford these. Lifting the shirt up, I inspected my body for scars or medical treatments. A lamp was on beside the bed, giving me enough light to see by. Looking down, I didn't think this could be my body. I was never fat because I could never afford to eat, but I never had a six-pack before. Although it might not have been a six-pack, but it was way more toned than what my skinny body was before. I stared at it, then noticed my nails, each long and pointed like those ugly things women pay to have. I had to see my face, just to make sure I was still myself. Stumbling out of bed, I slowly made my way over to a bathroom on the other side of the vast, plush room. Flicking the light on, I gave myself a good look over. My face looked the same, just healthy, as if I was getting the right amount of sleep and eating good meals. I've never looked like this. My hair was dyed a dark black instead of the mousy brown color I hated, and my eyes looked more golden than that brown that matched my hair in the past. Aside from the eye and hair color change, I looked about the same. A noise from inside the penthouse nearly made me scream. I jumped, crashing into the sink behind me. I couldn't find a weapon. Whatever was going on, I had to get the hell out of here. Someone else was here, and I didn't want to stay and find out who. Creeping along the place felt like a castle. I shuddered to think of how much just renting it for a month would cost. Even with all my efforts going into not being spotted, a man I recognized came peeking out from the kitchen, as I tried to make it as far away from this place as I could.
Mason, I made you coffee and I can order some food. Go sit down,
the white-haired man from before said to me. My knee-jerk reaction was to book it. The man knew my real name, not the false ones I've been using for years. I wanted to tell him to stuff it, and I was leaving. You really shouldn't have. My voice spoke, but I wasn't in control of it. Nor was I controlling my body when it obeyed the man and sat on a couch in the living area. On the inside, I was screaming all sorts of protest, trying to make myself move. But on the outside, I was acting like a good little boy sitting and waiting. Finally, that man sat down, setting a tray with 2 cups of sugar and cream in front of us on a small, polished wooden table. I could finally move, but needed answers. I stayed sitting. Who the hell are you? And what is going on? I asked, voice cracking from stress. Instead of being annoyed by the outburst, he just sat back on the couch looking cool and amused. I hated him in that moment.
I think you know the answer to the first question,
he said with a smile that got on my nerves. Sir, I have no idea what you're talking about. Wait, sir? I never call people sir. Not unless I was busting out the sweet talk. I didn't like this man in the slightest, so why did I give him even an ounce of respect?
What year is it?
He asked, and I frowned. 2000, I think. What does that have to do with anything?
How time does fly. The last time Fex encountered me, I was much different. Went by a horrible name, too.
It was a strange feeling. I somehow knew what he was talking about, and yet not at the same time. It was too damn frustrating. Laren, like glaring. That was your name before, but how would I know that if I don't know who you are? And who the hell is Fex? My head started to pound, as it felt like facts were shifting, getting shuffled into my mind.
Fex is the beast you allowed to possess your body. That is how you know of me.
He didn't move, only gave me another smile, trying to show off his handsome features, while my body felt like it turned into ice. I shot up suddenly, feeling like something was behind me. What stared back at me was that creature from the warehouse. Instead of being on all fours, it stood like a human, sheet over its eyes, but still looking down at me all the same. It was fully recovered, looking like a terrible beast, and yet held some kind of beauty that could make your lungs stop. I nearly fainted at the sight of it. Instead, I collapsed back into my chair, head between my knees as vague memories started to flood into my brain. The man beside me I knew to be important, to be a king of some sort. The beast behind me loved that man and was completely loyal to him. I was about to die when that king asked me to give my body over to the beast. We would both live and benefit from the agreement. Wanting to keep living, I let them do what they wanted.
Do you need a few minutes?
No, I just need a straight answer, I said, not raising my head.
All right, then. For who I am, I go by Silverman. I am the king of all the creatures of the dark. I was able to try and save Vex from those humans, and you saw how that turned out. Sadly enough, if rules are being followed, there isn't much I can do. They knew enough of Vex's true name to capture and control him. I wanted to do more. Rules are rules, though.
Silverman sounded a bit distant, and paused for a few seconds to collect himself.
Vex was about to die. He could have just eaten you and lived, but this beast is far too kind on humans. Instead, he let you take him into yourself. In a way now you are half demon. I suppose that's a term for it. You shall not age. It's nearly impossible to kill you. Because half-breeds do not have true names, they do not have that weakness, and cannot be killed or controlled by it. Vex only wanted to kill the humans who captured him. Now that is done. He has nothing else to live for, and gave up himself so that you may also live.
I sat up, looking behind me, trying to see the monster that saved my life. He wasn't visible, but I felt like he was still there. He would always be there. Wait, when did he kill those people? And isn't there, like, a way to split us apart? Silverman gave my questions a wave of his hand, as if I should know these answers already.
No. Once you two are together, you shall always be one. Vex has the stronger will of you two, so he can take control of your body at any point. Like I said, he is kind. He took over. Killed the ones you wronged and tucked you back into a comfy bed. You should have no memory of this, as if you were asleep. Although it is possible to be aware of his actions while he is in control. Fex forced you asleep because he guessed you would not wish to see humans dying by your own hands.
I felt sick with each passing word. My hands shook, and I grasped them together, feeling as if they were no longer my own. I wanted to be angry at what happened. To have my body just taken from me like that. In the back of my mind now, I knew he was there. I felt Feck's stress and worry about my reaction. Slowly, I forced all the tension out of my shoulders to accept what was being said. Yes, it was pretty alarming to hear my body was borrowed to commit murder, but Fex really did right by me, considering he could have left me to die. He only wanted this one thing. I should really just let him have it. Fex also relaxed wherever he was hiding in the back of my head. The whole thing was very, very strange, and I needed time to get adjusted to it. But it was much better than the alternative.
Now the issue is you're wanted for murder. Drink your coffee.
What? I sputtered out. My body acted on its own. I now knew it was Fex taking over. He could not ignore any order from his king, so he took the mug and made me drink some.
Fex did not have the forethought to cover up his crimes. After slaughtering an entire gang, you're on top of a few lists. But because you are now under my care, you shall not be arrested. I arranged a new identity for you. This place is just a temporary place to rest your head and get caught up. You'll need to be on the move now, but I assure you, you shall not be caught for those murders.
I still felt a little sick, just from how much information I needed to go through. Murder wasn't right at all, but I thought about what they had put Fex through. Yes, he was a monster. A creature that saved my life, and that's more than I could say about the people he killed. I was sitting, trying to take everything in, when Silverman got my attention. Normally, he was the type of person I would never get along with. Handsome, and he knew it. A killer smile that could seduce anyone he wanted, and I felt like he abused that power fairly often. But Fex liked him, and those feelings were rubbing off on me. I really didn't like giving this man any of my time.
You see? You could just spend your new life traveling, but how boring do you think that would become? Wouldn't you like a job? Something important?
I knew that kind of tone he was using. I'd used it most of my life. He was selling something, and the beast inside my mind was dead set on listening. Don't try selling me something, just say it, I said, and Silverman let his mask drop a little.
All right. I want to use you as a hitman. Sometimes there's only so much I can do. Like with Fex. I should have been able to save him sooner, but my hands are tied in some situations. That would not apply to you, because you were both human and not. And very hard to kill. You only need to let Fex take over to do the work, and you can enjoy the reward of being paid so much money you won't know what to do with it. You'll live the easiest life, by pretty much just sleeping through very profitable work. Also, this won't just benefit creatures of the night. How many humans do you think Fex had to harm based on orders he could not refuse? Humans and these creatures should not mix. If you take my offer, you'll be doing a lot of good in this world.
I sat and thought, suddenly wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into. I was wearing silk, sitting on a couch that would cost a fortune in a world so far removed from my own. Murder was horrible. Even when I was doing petty crimes, I swore I would never get to that point for money. And yet, it was a very good offer. I shouldn't turn my back on humans. Still, at the same time, my mind kept going back to the image of that dark creature torn and bloody. Against his will, he harmed people and fought against it. Fex killed the ones responsible so they could never do it again. The real beasts were the ones who caught him in the first place. What made me slowly start to nod my head was the idea of there being more Fexes out there. More creatures being used by evil for profit. And who knows what else. All right, I said with a final nod. I felt even more sure of my choice as the seconds passed. I'll take the job. Silverman was right. Time does fly. That night was so long ago, and so many things have happened since. I do have more stories to tell based on what my job brought. But for now, this is how I became what I am. Some memories I don't want to bring up just yet. Right now, I simply want to think about the worst, yet best night of my life. I should have died before the new millennium rolled in. Instead of perishing, I was saved by a monster. A creature I am still not certain of what he truly is. In exchange for healing my wounds and ensuring that I lived a long life, he fused himself into my body. His end of the deal was to use my body to kill the ones who had wronged him. After the debt was settled, I was alive and well, but had a monster forever in the back of my mind, watching. The threat of him taking over looming over every second of the day. It was not a good experience for the first few months. I was assured that Fex, the creature I was now stuck with, would not take over my body unless it was an emergency or for work. I wasn't given an assignment yet. Silverman was the man who hired me to use my new monstrous powers to hunt down creatures of the night. He did not want to give me any tasks until I'd adjusted to my new life. I'd assumed Fex would be the one taking over, and be the one doing all the work. Just in case, he gave us an adjustment period before throwing us headfirst into a new job. For the first 2 months, I tried my best to become friends with the creature listening to my thoughts. He had not said a word to me since I woke up a new person. I started to wonder if he even could any longer. At times, I could feel his emotions, and sudden memories come to me as a response to a question instead of words. Sometimes I saw his form out of the corner of my eye or in reflections. A massive creature with dark fur standing on 2 legs. A pure black mane flowing behind him and face covered. Seeing that behind you for a blink of an eye in the middle of the night, while going to the washroom, is an easy way to give yourself a heart attack. My life before was one of lying and cheating to get by. Now I had a nice penthouse to hang out in. I never had such luxury before. Any foods could be ordered in, and I didn't need to worry about income. I thought this was what I always wanted, but very soon I found myself getting extremely bored. I started to wish Silverman deemed us adjusted, just to have something to do. Plus, I felt like I was losing my mind a little. Leftovers were going missing, or snacks I was saving for later. Yes, I could always buy more, but it was the principle of the matter. If Fex wanted to take over my body and eat, he should just tell me instead of waiting until I fell asleep. Or maybe one of us was sleep eating. Our first task as this strange one-body team finally came. I received a letter telling me to meet Silverman in the park near sunset. This was back before the days of texting. I wondered why he even bothered with a letter. He could have just called. The weather was bitterly cold and the sun set early. The park was huge and it was easy to get lost. If it wasn't for Fex pointing a clawed hand in the right direction, I would not have made it to the prearranged meeting spot on time. From what I could tell, I was the only one who could see the massive creature following behind me. Silverman was late. I didn't like the man, but Fex adored him. It was a loyalty thing I wasn't aware of because I was born human. Apparently, all creatures of the night loved their Silver King in some way. It was hardwired into their nature. I was certain some out there hated the man, but Fex wasn't one of them. Shivering in the cold, I rubbed my hands together trying to stay warm. If you put in the effort of sending a letter, you should at least be on time. When Silverman did arrive, he was just there. I looked down the path, then back to the bench for him to be sitting on it. I jumped nearly 10 feet in the air, startled by how he came out of thin air. I wanted to curse at him, but for my monster's sake, I kept my angry words to myself.
You look like you seen a ghost,
Silverman commented at my startled expression. He was dressed in a 3-piece suit with a wool coat over top. Pure white hair was styled perfectly, and red eyes glittered in the fading light. This bastard was handsome, and the kind of man who knew it. He was the type of person I couldn't stand and spent most of my life trying to avoid. "You're late," I grumbled.
Sun isn't down yet, so I'm not. Anyway, how you been getting along?"
he asked, dismissing my valid concern like a pro. "As well as someone with a monster possessing their body can be," I said with a shrug.
"I was hoping to let you settle in a little bit more, but something came up. This is not a hit, more of a wellness check. Since you're not busy, I thought it was a good first task for you to bond a little."
I held back my sarcastic reply. Fex was stuck inside my head. How much more bonded could you get? "So am I checking in on an old lady creature that hasn't been seen in a month or something?" I asked, wondering what on earth a wellness check for a supernatural creature could possibly be.
"No, not something like that. I would like you to go check on a creature that goes by the name Manifesto."
I felt Fex perk up when he heard the name. Whoever was just mentioned was someone he knew. Suddenly, he felt eager to know what our task was, and it was the most amount of emotion I've felt from him since our strange arrangement started. Fex seems to know him. Is he important?
"No, not really. A small creature, all things considered. He is what humans call a ship demon. Back when humans sailed much more, ship demons were common. In order to ensure the ship, its crew, and the cargo arrives at the destination safely, the ship demon demands a human sacrifice."
Silverman started to explain, looking a little disappointed I didn't already know this. I understood the concept. Why risk losing your entire crew when a death up front makes it certain you'll get through anything the ocean tosses at you? So many different types of creatures were out there, and I didn't know anything about them, but not for lack of trying. It would be easier if these two would talk to me a little more.
"Manifesto is a rarity because he's still honoring the system. When humans started to abandon the ship demons, he stayed on, although the captain of the ship isn't aware of it. Back in the day, Manifesto was the strongest and therefore could protect the largest ships. His sacrifice number has not changed from those days. 6 per trip is his limit. So far on this current trip, 4 people have disappeared."
Fex had a flutter of stress and worry in the back of my mind. I understood why we were being sent for the job. He had history with this demon, and would know if something was off about him. But I didn't understand why both of them were even worried in the first place. If Manifesto could take 6 people, why go and check on him before he hit that number? He's still within his numbers, right? Why are you both so worried about this?
"When I said Manifesto was a rarity, I meant it. He is allowed 6 humans per trip, but he may only take 3 per year. Him and Fex appear not too interested in eating you humans. I think it's why they associated with each other. Manifesto only takes elderly that would have passed on the ship naturally. For him to take 4 people, 2 healthy and young couples, it's just strange. I would like you 2 to go out to his ship and meet him. Fex would know if anything's off about him. Report back to me what you find out. If he goes over his 6 human limit while you're on board, kill him."
I started to rub my hands together for warmth in the cold, dark night. I also wanted to hide the fact that my hands shook a little over the idea of killing this demon. I knew it was the job I took, but I never imagined we would be tasked with killing someone Fex knew. Silverman was using the word associate, but I felt like these two had been friends in the past. Or at least friendly with each other. Then again, I may be putting too many human characteristics on Fex. He had emotions, but his world was completely different from my own. I tried looking back into my head, attempting to get a feeling on how Fex was feeling about the idea of killing someone he knew. He either didn't feel anything about it at all, or had walls up blocking me out. It was only sinking in just then that Fex was a creature with a long history. This may not be the only creature he associated with in the past. He might need to kill for breaking their rules. "Does it need to be us to kill him?" I asked finally. There must have been a different person to handle this sort of thing when I came up. Silverman looked up at me, his eyes changing slightly in the dim light. I didn't read the look he was giving me, but I didn't like it. A dark look that only a king could give. Fex rattled in the back of my head, stressed that I displeased his king in any way.
"You took this job. Try not to back out on the very first sign of inconvenience.
I took a step back, feeling a sudden pressure shoving down on my shoulders. His red eyes bore in on me. I looked away, unable to stand the look, and Felix freaking out at the same time. I did take this job. Still, I should take the feelings of the monster inside my head into consideration. Silverman's glare be damned. I wasn't going to do anything wrong by the creature that saved my life. I felt a hand on my shoulder and flinched. Silverman got up to be on the same level as me.
I know it'll take a while to adjust. However, keep in mind Fex is not human. How he has lived is vastly different from yourself. This is why I'm sending you on this little check-in. Maybe afterwards you might understand him a little.
Silverman explained in a lighter tone. He gave my shoulder another pat before he started to walk away from us. I didn't know what ship Manifesto was on or even how to get there. If it was in the middle of the ocean, would I need to rent a boat? He barely explained anything, and now he was just walking away, giving us a wave without even looking back. Wait, how do I started.
Fex knows what ship it is and how to get there. Just trust in his skills and work together. Have fun on your cruise.
Wait, a cruise? Did I hear that right? Manifesto, a demon who takes human sacrifices to ensure the ship arrives safely, is currently watching over a cruise ship? That explained the elderly sacrifices he was taking. Those ships were crawling with them. Shivering in the dark park, I rubbed my arms over my coat trying to warm up. At least this would be a warm trip. Unless it was an Alaskan cruise, and I very much hoped it wasn't. When we got back to our temporary penthouse, I wondered what I would need to pack. The passport Silverman had given me would still be in the pile of new IDs that was made up. I didn't even remember my new name yet. It would be a strange experience traveling with a monster in the back of my head. I found the pile of important paper and reached for it, only to have my hand get a mind of its own to snatch up a box of chalk right next to the papers. I was confused. What use could some chalk possibly have? I felt a prodding I knew to be Fex asking permission to take over some parts of my body. Lately, we'd been practicing letting him use my legs or my hand while I stayed conscious. We also practiced how we should ask permission for a short takeover. So far, it was all done by feelings. Fex hadn't actually spoken to me since the possession started, and everything would be a lot easier if he just told me what he wanted. I watched him as he went to the front door, where flooring made of stone decorated the entranceway. Using the chalk, he drew a circle enough for me to fit comfortably inside. Then he wrote some strange symbols around the circle. Watching him, I had no clue what he was doing. I flinched when he cut my thumb, placing a bloody fingerprint at the end of the symbol he just drew. Being a half-human, half-monster meant I was hard to kill. I still bleed, and it still hurt when it happened. Once it was done, my feet took a few steps forward into the circle, and to what I thought to be solid ground. The strangest feeling came over me. It was like expecting another step at the end of the stairs. My foot met no resistance, and I jolted when it finally hit the floor. Carpeted floor. I blinked, trying to ignore the feeling in my stomach. Looking around, I found that I was no longer in the penthouse, but in a large space that looked very much like a cruise ship. The hallway was covered in a red carpet. Each wall was painted the same red color with gold trim. Looking up, I saw myself staring back down. The ceiling was curved and made up of mirrors. Hearing some people talk from down the hallway, I started walking, hoping no one would notice how I suddenly appeared on the ship. Hell, I didn't even know how Fex just did that. I did not need anyone to question me. Looking down at my winter coat, I wondered if I could pretend I was wearing it, because I was headed to the deck and wanted to protect myself from the wind. I felt the tug of Fex asking for permission to take over. I relented. Letting him have full control while still conscious was yet another thing I needed to get adjusted with. I could see my surroundings as if I was floating just outside my body. I could feel what my body was doing, unless Fex blocked the sensations from me. Having a 360-degree view of things was going to be very useful in the future. Since Fex wasn't speaking to me yet, I could only assume this is how he saw things while he was in control. We paused, looking around to see no one in sight. Reaching into the pocket, he took out a new stick of chalk. I could feel this one was special through the slight tingle where it touched bare skin. Wasting no time, he drew another circle on the wall surrounded by symbols again. Then he shoved our body through the circle where a wall should have been. A moment of darkness. Then we were upside down on the ceiling somewhere in the belly of the ship. Our upper body just coming out of the steel metal rippling where we touched it. The circle still surrounding us. Fex took a few glances around the dark part of the ship and ducked back inside the circle. We kept on like this, appearing at different spots of the ship and at different angles. So far, no signs of Manifesto. Worry started to come from Fex, as we kept popping out of the circles, not finding the ship demon. Even though I had no control of my body when we peeked out into a busy restaurant, I made a silent scream trying to duck back inside. However, not a single person looked our way. The small amount of information I'd gathered so far was, for some reason, as long as we stayed inside the circle, no one could see us. Whatever magic Fex used allowed us to explore the entire ship unseen. No matter how hard the other creature tried to hide, we would find him. That was what I thought. More worry and negative emotions came in from Fex. My stomach turned and my head started to ache. While inside an employee-only area, he got our entire body out the door to walk, trying to settle his nerves. The circle moved with us, making it so we wouldn't be seen. The more he moved, the worse the feeling got. When the ship tilted very slightly, I found out why letting Fex have full control was not going to work out. I watched as I got into a bathroom stall, most likely one from the restaurant, and got very sick. I watched, unable to do anything because he was still in control. At first, I thought of curses or magic traps came to mind. A very simple answer explained it. Fex was seasick. I was a bit disappointed, but understood. While he was using my body, his senses were far beyond my own. He was stronger and could use powers I wasn't even aware of. The movements of the ship became enhanced and too much for him. It just meant we would need to search the ship and get information the slow way. Cleaning up, he let me take over again. I felt just how sorry he was. He'd done enough for right now. Getting us on a ship in the middle of the ocean was plenty. He could trust me to take over from there. The best place to get information is a bar. Along the way, I got lost trying to find the damn thing. I'd stopped a few times looking at maps and found a few useful bits of history about the ship, a pre-recorded voice said every few minutes. Also while walking, I found an envelope inside my coat pocket that had not been there before. Inside was a paper signed by Silverman. He thought it would be useful giving us photos of the missing couple and their name. Anne got and Travis got. Leah June and Dean Woods. Memorizing the names and faces, I tucked the paper away again. If I could figure out where the disappearance happened on the ship, I might have a place to start. The bar was fairly busy. I ordered a soda because I needed to stay focused. Scanning the room, I tried pinning down someone I could easily chat up for information. There were a decent number of younger people. Here I was thinking cruise ships were only for rich, retired folks. The small tables were full of groups of people. They all looked friendly with each other. The cruise must be in the final stages if so many people had time to become close. If someone passed by a table, the group would look up with half recognition on their face. Being on a ship for over a week may mean running into the same people, especially if you like the same bar or restaurant. The word June made me turn my head. Focusing, I found I was able to hear much more than usual. Fex was helping me out by enhancing one of my senses. However, it is not as good as it sounds. He lived his entire life in an inhuman body. He didn't understand I wasn't adjusted to hear every noise a few hundred people made at once. It took a lot of focus to mentally cut down on the noise. Standing against the bar, I slowly learned how to use this new skill. At first, all the noise made me flinch. I dismissed the music, then the clinking of glasses. Then I could get myself to focus on one conversation, even if it was from across the room. When I thought it wasn't of any interest, I quickly moved on. I felt a little bad invading someone's privacy in a small way. They were out in public, and I wasn't going to remember anything that didn't relate to my job, and that made it a bit easier. A few hours passed by, and I gathered up a few bits of relevant information. Scraps of sentences floating around. Anne and Travis were high energy. It's a shame those two left at the last port. We loved meeting them.
Didn't another couple leave? Nah, the crew said they disappeared off the main deck.
Sounds like a couple suicide to me.
Yeah, I saw my sister earlier this morning. It was weird because she felt sick and was in her room all morning. I waved, but she didn't even stop and, denied ever seeing me. A bit spooky, right?
For a few hours of listening in, it wasn't much. But I finally found a place to start. If one couple disappeared on the main deck, I just needed to find another map to get there. I tipped the bartender, glad to have my wallet in my jacket pocket. About to leave, I glanced about the room once more. Just then, the music started to pick up, making it difficult to continue listening if I wanted. What I saw made me pause, body frozen, unsure of what I should do. By chance, I saw a man slide his arm behind a girl he was sitting with. While she was distracted, he dropped something in her drink. I blinked, wondering if I just saw what I thought I did. A rage at my back started to bubble over, and made it clear that Fex noticed it too. Should I go over and tell her? That would risk the attention coming to myself. Or should I somehow knock the drink over? Tell the bartender and hope he can do something? As I thought of what action to take, I felt Fex offer something. No words, just a feeling as if he had a plan of how to deal with this. Letting him take over to do what he wanted, the monster easily slipped into control, forcing me to look over my own shoulder. Using the condensation from the half-empty soda glass, he drew a circle on the bar top. A small one, which was barely noticeable. With the tip of our finger, he drew symbols around the circle so quickly no one noticed what we were doing. Placing a palm over top of it, I felt a cold sensation stuck to our hand. No water remained after the hand was lifted away. Slipping through the crowd, he faked a trip, placing a wet hand on the man's back and spilling the girl's drink at the same time. He was too fast, slipping away in the crowd before the couple at the table recovered from the sudden intrusion. My heart was racing. Fex switched places with me to make my way through the crowd. Risking a glance back, I noticed why no one was giving me any kind of attention. The man had collapsed to the ground, strangers rushing in to help. I felt my hands shake slightly as I quickened my pace. Did we just kill him? Did I just let Fex kill someone? Yes, I mean I was a hitman now, but this was different. This was my choice. And what if I just made a mistake? Somehow, what if I mistook what I'd seen earlier and just condemned a stranger on a hunch? I didn't just kill someone because I had proof of crimes. I just let a monster inside my head take over on a whim. Rushing out, I found a bathroom that was thankfully empty. I collapsed into a stall, not even concerned about the dirty floor. My shoulders felt like thousands of pounds were being pressed into them. My hands shook and my chest felt tight. I'd never felt this way before. Even when I was about to die, I didn't feel half this bad. Inside my head, my thoughts kept spiraling, convincing myself I just killed someone innocent. The more I thought about it, the more I felt as if I was having a heart attack. What if in the future I do this again? How many innocent people am I going to kill or let Fex kill? How many people did he already take control of my body to murder? What did I get myself into and...
Mason.
The voice made me jerk my head up, unaware of the fact I had tears in my eyes. Out from the wall, I saw Fex looking down. His monstrous form took up nearly the entire stall. Still, hearing my name made me calm down a little. My real name. One I abandoned because I didn't want the one good thing my mother ever gave me being tainted by being said by the lowlifes I hung around with. And yet, it sounded perfectly fine coming from a monster with a mouth full of sharp teeth. After so long, Fex was finally talking to me. Did we just kill someone? I asked Fex softly. The upper half of his face was covered with fabric. I'd yet to see his full face. It was fairly off-putting, still having so much I didn't know about the creature I was stuck with. Pausing to think through his words, he finally spoke again. Human speech was a strange sight coming from an animalistic mouth.
We only placed a curse on that man. The curse awakens when certain conditions are met. If he attempts to do the same actions, he shall faint. If he is...
Yet again, he paused, but this time I felt a wave of embarrassment from him. He cleared his throat before continuing.
If he is in an intimate situation with another, he must receive consent to proceed. Without that, or any attempts in force, shall end in extreme pain in a very important area on his person.
I felt a bit relieved that I wasn't a murderer yet. It also appeared Fex was rather shy when it came to discussing intimate matters. It gave him an air of endearment, despite his monstrous form.
The curse also served another purpose. It was a test to see if Manifesto would appear.
I nodded, understanding what he meant. Manifesto took humans as a sacrifice, in exchange to make sure the voyage went smoothly. A random creature coming on board and cursing one of his passengers was something he should stop at any cost, even if the passenger deserved it. Because Manifesto didn't stop us, something might be wrong with the ship demon. Do you think he's even on the ship? I asked, voicing my theory he may have taken the two couples and bailed for some unknown reason.
He is. I can sense him while you cannot. It is very strange. His movements are sporadic. This is why we were unable to catch him while searching the ship. I have never seen this sort of movement from him before. I doubt he even has the ability to move between places so quickly.
What does he even look like? Do you think we've seen a glance of him without realizing? I asked suddenly, becoming aware that only Fex knew Manifesto's appearance. Neither him nor Silverman had given me any sort of description yet. Another long pause.
I cannot tell you of any of his defining features without making it sound like an insult.
What the hell could that mean? Was Manifesto so ugly that there were no redeeming features? What could be so terrible a monster like Fex didn't think attractive?
He only wears black,
Fex added in quickly, thinking of the only thing he could mention. Putting aside our troubles for a second, I was wondering something. Manifesto is a demon, right? As in, a demon from hell? Does that mean there's some weird afterlife out there? I knew there were more pressing matters, but I just couldn't help myself from asking.
Manifesto is not a demon in the biblical sense. It was just a label humans gave him. I am not at liberty to comment about the topic of an afterlife. I cannot even confirm or deny any religions.
Fex was very firm in his answer. He was a solid wall of refusal. There were just some answers I would not get out of him, no matter how hard I tried. At least it was worth a shot. Giving up on that topic, I moved back to the main one. Look, I'm sorry I got freaked out earlier. I know I should be a kick-ass and take names sort of guy. I did take the job after all. I just couldn't forgive myself if I made a mistake and got someone killed, I explained. I still felt pretty terrible for having the reaction to run off and hide somewhere. I knew from the start what my job was going to be. At some point, I was going to need to kill someone. Or Fex was going to use my body to do it. I owed him my life, and saving other creatures that suffered in the same way Fex had was the least I could do. I just wasn't ready for something as huge as murder.
Mason, you are now in a world of supernatural creatures. I am by far one of the better ones to come across. The monsters we shall encounter eat humans. I have eaten some, on occasion. You shall meet creatures whose logic is well beyond your own. You'll need to make very tough decisions to survive. You may be harder to kill, however death is still possible. If our luck is bad, we may come across some things that are so far removed from this world, neither of us may stay sane after. You are going to change through all of these experiences. With all of that being said, I am glad you are the person I am with through it all. I believe you are perfectly fine the way you currently are, and wish, if possible, you would not change.
That was the nicest thing anyone had ever said to me. Even if it came from a monster while I sat on a men's bathroom floor. I felt a little happy at first, then a little embarrassed because I didn't know how to make any kind of positive comments. How come you haven't talked to me before this?
I was hoping that it would be easier on you. I am not human, and have been shoved into your body. That is enough to deal with, on top of that creature trying to speak with you. I also hoped I would fade away in time, if I stopped speaking.
Fex answered honestly. Seriously, this monster was more considerate than nearly every person I've ever known. Out of all the creatures out there, I really hit the jackpot getting him. With a lot of things cleared up, we needed to think of a real plan. It would be easier now that I could communicate with Fex with words instead of vague feelings. I need you to stick around. I clearly can't do any of this by myself. I was thinking of us checking out the main deck to start with. Maybe we'll find something. He nodded, agreeing with me. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was a start. He was starting to fade away, to go back into wherever he went, when another question came to my mind. Have you been eating all the leftovers? He didn't answer. Instead, he just left me in silence like the monster he was. It was late in the night, so the hallways were mostly empty. People either inside their rooms or inside the bars. I didn't come across anyone often, but when I did, they creeped me out. They walked past me silently. At first, I didn't notice anything. Then I became aware of small details. I never heard them walking towards me, I just saw someone turn the corner. They walked past, just giving me a side eye as if I didn't notice. They were so freaky, I asked Fex to see if he could tell me if they were all human. He confirmed they were, and didn't sense anything off about it. But I did. It was as if we were being watched the entire way onto the deck. It took a while, and many maps later, before I found it. It was empty. Not a single person was out at that time. The weather was nice compared to the hellish winter I came from. Some wind, but the breeze helped cool the humid night. I walked around trying to sniff anything out. If there were some hints remaining, Fex would be able to sense it. Most of the deck was taken up by a pool. A pool. On the ocean. I lived my life just getting by. Being around wealth of any kind kept shocking me. Even the quality of life of people living comfortably was something I'd aimed for, but never thought I would achieve. Now I was on a massive ship with bars, restaurants, and gift shops. I didn't check yet, but I was certain there were some spas on this cruise ship as well. Manifesto picked a good ship to live on. Maybe after this job, if we didn't kill him, we might stay for a few days. Never been on a ship this size before. Might as well enjoy it a little. A small sound alerted my attention, and I looked behind me. The light was good, so I could see clearly. From the edge of the pool closest to me was a black shape emerging from the water. Fex knew who it was the moment we saw the figure. The elusive ship demon finally came to greet us. Fex was right about him wearing only black. When he stood to his full height, I fully understood why my monster partner was so against trying to describe him. Manifesto was short, downright child-sized. His long black hair trailed behind him and looked longer than his body. 3 long horns of different heights poked from his head, giving him more height and almost in a crown shape. A black veil covered his face, making it impossible to see what he looked like. Sleeves that nearly touched the ground hid his hands. His small feet poked out from under the soaking wet piles of black fabric his small body was wrapped in. His feet looked exactly like bird claws. He's just a little guy, isn't he? I asked Fex inside my head.
Switch with me. Something isn't...
Fex didn't finish speaking. He took over my body the moment before Manifesto jumped forward so fast I didn't even see him move. Fex put both arms crossed out in front, protecting our head from a kick powerful enough to shatter both arms. Without Fex's reaction speed, we would be dead. He blocked out all the feelings of pain from me. I don't think there are words to describe the feeling of bones breaking without the pain at the same time. The kick launched us backwards and off the boat. I couldn't do a damn thing as we fell, hundreds of feet into the cold, dark waters below. When Manifesto kicked us, he also did something that froze our body in the position of the impact. Fex didn't respond when I screamed at him, trying to get him to snap us out of it. We needed to get our body moving. I felt faintly the impact of falling into the ocean. I couldn't see anything or do anything. No air was in our lungs, and the water was far too cold than it had any right being. Moments after dropping inside the abyss of the sea, my mind was already spiraling. We were hard to kill, but we could still die. This body wasn't made to hold up against everything. I panicked in the darkness, certain we would drown. Or maybe we would sink until the pressure of the sea crushed us. Still, we sank deeper and deeper. I only hoped the ship had engines with those massive propellers to catch our body and put us out of our misery before the sea took our lives. With a final scream, I heard Fex say my name. I calmed down as I could feel our body moving. He struggled with everything we had to get back to the surface. Sputtering and fighting against the current of the sea, he got some air before we were forced back down. Our arms healed, but that didn't mean we would get out of this alive. The ship was causing such huge waves and a powerful current that we could not get out from. Aside from getting seasick, Fex was not a strong swimmer. I wasn't the best one either. I'd only seen him use magic by drawing circles first. There was nothing to draw on, and our chalk would be ruined by the water even if he thought of something.
This is going to hurt,
he warned me. Because he was speaking directly inside my mind, he could communicate while forced underwater again. I tried to get mentally prepared for the plan. We had just been about to drown, so anything would be better than that. 1 second, our body was struggling to stay afloat, and the next, we were in the middle of a familiar hallway. Soaking wet and coughing up salt water, I looked around to see the red carpet and gold trimmings. And I hurt. My hands curled, frozen in pain. Every nerve felt like it was on fire, and gagging up water just made it all worse. Whatever Fex did saved us, but it also hurt like a bitch.
You must walk. If you do not, your body shall freeze up. Flex your fingers.
I tried doing what the voice inside my head told me, but it was agony. With some more encouragement, I was slowly able to move my fingers. Each time I opened and closed my hands, the pain lessened. Getting up, my leg muscles cramped in protest. I changed my mind. Drowning would be better. What did you do? I asked, taking a painful step forward.
I dipped into my power to use a spell. I aimed for dry land, preferably the penthouse. I do not know why we returned onto the ship,
he explained, even though it didn't give an answer as to why I was in so much pain. Why does this suck so much? I was struggling for every small step forward.
Despite the fact that you fused your body with mine, you are still essentially human. Humans are not compatible with magic. Their bodies get overloaded very easily. You may have access to my powers, but cannot use them until your body adjusts. The overload is blocking me out from taking over for a few minutes. Please endure it until then.
I was learning all sorts of things from Felix. I really should have made him speak up sooner. Months wasted. But we got here using magic in the first place, I hissed, fighting through another leg cramp.
Circle spells are different. They use power from the surrounding area, and from the materials used. If you know the right symbol and material combination, even a human can create a spell. We did not use any of my inner power then. Only the power locked inside the words, and the chalk.
I was feeling a little better by the time I'd hobbled down half the hallway. It still felt awful, and I would very much rather not have this job anymore. Fex had some pretty awful friends. If I saw that little runt again, I needed to give him a piece of my mind for dragging us along on this horrible ship, then kicking us off. I was miserable, wet, and in pain. Thankfully, Fex stayed silent on how grouchy I was. On a scale of 1 to 100%, how much power did you just use to knock me on my ass? Groaning in pain, I straightened my back out. My legs still sore, but my hands returning to normal. Fex was silent for a long time, as I got the kinks out of the overloaded magic through my body.
It is not even 1%,
he said finally. My stomach fluttered. I wasn't even aware that Fex was this powerful. If not even a shadow of his strength could fry me, then he could overload my body thousands of times over. I had assumed he was more of a bite and slash kind of creature with a small amount of magic. But the amount of power he had hidden away was insane. And he was just one of very many creatures out there. What kind of a world did I stumble into? Down the hallway I saw a woman. I was still wet from the ocean and stiff, but overall looked normal enough. She may look at me strangely, but that's all. I still wanted to avoid her, but she turned down the hallway and right towards me. I then noticed how silent the ship sounded. Even with most passengers in their rooms, I should be hearing faint music from the bars or the music from the overhead speakers. Nothing. I only heard her walking towards me. She looked a bit off, but Fex did not warn me of any danger. When she was about to run right into me, I took a step away and out of her path. "Can I help you?" I asked in a tone that I thought was kind. Without any hint of emotion, the stranger pulled a knife she had hidden at her side and stabbed me directly into the gut. That got Fex's attention, but he was still unable to switch over with me. The entire thing was so unreal I didn't react. She pulled the knife out and stabbed again. This time I grabbed her wrist, trying to get the knife out of her grasp. Not dying because of a stab wound or being kicked off a boat had a downside. I was alive to feel being stabbed again. The first wound healed over when I wrestled the knife from her and stumbled back. It looked like a steak knife she just picked up off a restaurant table. It hurt. A lot. I've heard about people going into shock and not feeling the pain, but my body wasn't being so kind to me. I took off in a half jog, getting away from my attacker. Even for self-defense, I wasn't the type to hit someone. A very bad choice for my new line of work. I could easily knock her out with my increased strength, but I just couldn't hit a random middle-aged woman, even if she stabbed me first. Taking off down the hallway, I saw more people turning the corner, each with a makeshift weapon in their hands. From forks to knives to anything heavy they could hit me with and do damage. Each had the same blank expression on their face. I turned, thinking the one unarmed woman would be better than the 5 who had just appeared. Down the hallway, more people started to turn the corner, blocking me inside. I darted to an employee-only door and started to try to kick it open. The damn thing didn't even budge, as if it was just painted on.
"Mason, you need to fight them,"
Fex told me in a stern voice he'd never used before. "I can't, they're just human. What if Manifesto is controlling them?
Just human or not, we can still die if they remove your head. You must fight them off. Manifesto does not have the power to control humans in this way. I do not understand what is happening, but we need to live to figure it out."
He was right. I still just couldn't get into a fight with the mob slowly forming on either side of the hallway. I'd used my sweet-talking skill for my entire life for a reason. I was never a fighter. I took this job because I wanted to protect people, but wasn't ready for what that meant. When someone came up to me with another steak knife, I knocked it out of their hand and pushed them aside. And then another person took a swing at me. It was not graceful or a good fight. I was doing my best to keep them away, but at the same time not do too much damage. If I could just get through the emotionless crowd, I could hide and think of a real plan.
"I'm taking over."
To my horror, Fex shoved me aside. It was so forceful I blacked out, sinking into darkness as all feelings in my strained body went away. I floated in a dreamless sleep for a while, until I felt myself being pulled back up and standing still in the red hallway. My breath caught as I looked down at my surroundings. at what Fex had done when he'd taken over. The crowd of people who were so threatening before, all were in pieces scattered around the hallway. I only saw red as my blood turned ice cold. I couldn't think. I couldn't move or do anything as fear and panic fused into one horrible, cold emotion. Fex killed them. Using my body. He killed humans without any real cause. We were strong enough to just push them aside, but he'd taken over and did the one thing I'd feared the most. I clamped my hands over my ears, bile rising into my throat, trying to block everything out. I heard Fex calling for me, saying my name, trying to get my attention. The shock finally sank in, and I just didn't react to his words. Or anything. For a long time.
Mason, please open your eyes. Look in front of you.
I shook my head, refusing to look at the carnage Fex created. With my eyes clamped shut, he waited silently as I came to a realization. I didn't smell any blood. With this many bodies, it should reek. I opened my eyes, staring down at the first body in front of me, and didn't understand what I was seeing. Yes, it was in pieces, but those pieces were sharp, jagged edges, as if he were a glass sculpture someone had smashed. Looking to the next few bodies, they were all the same, all with cracks in their bodies and no blood to be seen. In shock at seeing them, my mind filled in the blanks. When I saw the body parts and the red hallway, I'd assumed gore that wasn't there. Letting out a long sigh of relief, I nudged the cracked arm in front of me to make sure it wasn't really human. I stuttered, trying to explain my minor mental breakdown.
It is understandable. If we faced real humans, I would not have done this kind of damage. Unless I broke them apart fully, they just kept trying to attack. I could not tell the difference between them and a real human. It was only when I shattered an arm with too much force I realized there was no harm in killing them.
Those people who were watching us strangely from before must have been these false versions. Fex couldn't tell the difference then. Because he could not sense the difference between the false and real passengers, an idea as to why Manifesto was acting so strangely finally came to mind. Do you think Manifesto was replaced with one of these as well? Fex thought for a short while, trying to go through all of his knowledge of monsters, and if it was possible to make a replacement.
Yes, I believe so. I do not know much about them, but I have heard some information about creatures simply called mirrors. They can only make mirror copies of humans. Taking the appearance of a creature of the night requires it to transform their main body. The Manifesto that we came across is most likely the fake version. Since mirrors are the reflection of the existence of the creature, and not the image, they must keep the real creature alive,
Fex explained to me. I started to walk along the hallways and did my best to avoid stepping on broke pieces. I knew now we hadn't slaughtered a bunch of people, but the place still made my skin crawl. We had some answers. No thanks to me in the slightest. Fex really should have taken over my body to start with. If he hadn't gotten seasick earlier, he could have finished this job by now. It might be my body, but he was the one most suited for this job. I really needed to get my crap together. We found out that Fex could be blocked out. In the future, if we got into a situation where it was just me, we might now make it. So we just need to find the real one and get out of here, right?
Finding the real Manifesto is a start. I am unaware of what method the mirror used to keep him silent. Manifesto has more strength than myself. I would be unable to keep him tethered. If we fight against the false version again, we shall lose. We need to find the real one to win.
Now that wasn't good news at all. I walked around the empty ship, now more aware that the fake Manifesto could come at us any time. If it did, that would be it for us. This ship was huge, giving us another disadvantage in the situation. Can't we just leave and get help then come back? I offered.
No, I do not know where we are. When I tried to leave earlier while we almost drowned, we appeared on the ship, because it is the only thing that exists right now, besides the ocean.
I froze, not understanding his words. How could everything besides this ship just disappear? Did the rest of the world somehow get sealed off from us? Surely it was really out there, and there was just something blocking Fex, sensing the rest. I stood, feeling no movement from the ship under my feet. Do you think it can create reflections of places? I felt Fex perk up inside my head. That was something he didn't consider before. If this monster could make copies of humans and ship demons, what was stopping him making a copy of the ship? It still didn't answer where the hell we were or how to get back, but it at least answered why the ship was so still.
Yes, that's possible. If we can break the reflections of humans, perhaps we can break the reflection of the ship. However, finding the real Manifesto comes first. Please stand still and close your eyes for a few moments. I would like to see if I have missed any traces of him.
I found a spot against the wall and somewhat hidden behind a plastic plant. I didn't want to be in the middle of a hallway in case someone tried to come up behind me and stab me in the back. With my back against a wall, they could only come up and stab me in the front. Minutes passed, and I waited for something to happen. Nothing felt different, and I didn't even know what Fex was doing inside my head. Being able to sense other creatures was a useful skill I hoped he could teach me someday. I needed to learn so much to start being even remotely useful. We really shouldn't be out doing any sort of job yet, even if it was as simple as a wellness check.
I can feel a hint of a second Manifesto. It must be the real one. The false one is staying nearby. He must know we are aware of his identity. I fear that if we get close, he may kill Manifesto and flee.
That was not the outcome I wanted at all. Being guided along, I walked through the ship. It was a very different experience in a dead, silent, and still cruise ship. No other human reflections came out trying to stop us. It was a wasted effort. Fex could smash them easily. Their makeshift weapons couldn't hurt him. They only hurt us because I'd let them. Now that I knew they weren't human, I wasn't going to let that happen again. I'd already gotten lost inside the ship. It was massive and impossible to memorize after a few hours. We stopped in the middle of another large hallway, and Fex signaled me to stop.
I feel a faint presence coming from down below. We are directly above him. Finding stairs is far too time-consuming.
What's the plan? Hulk smash through the floor until we get to him?
Yes.
I was not expecting such a short and honest one-word answer from him. It made me do a little snort of a laugh. The mental image was fairly amusing. But even with my increased strength, I didn't think we could just smash our way through such a thick floor. Some parts were reinforced with steel. Magic would be a better choice. If our chalk survived the ocean, we could just use that. I did not even get a chance to suggest the idea before the fake Manifesto made the decision for us. Fex gave me enough of a warning to look up to see the black shape flying toward us from the ceiling. I put up one arm in time to catch the blow. The arm was shattered upon impact, and a jolt went through my body, freezing it in place. Fex was blocked out completely. The force of the kick cracked the ground underneath my feet. Huge pieces fell away as if it was made of glass, taking us with it. I couldn't move or attempt to break the fall. Slamming on the ground below, I just couldn't get over how bad the pain of impact was. Every part of my body screamed in agony as parts of the floor came crashing down around me with a tinkling sound of glass. I never thought anything would ever hurt more, but I was wrong. Another kick came, smashing us through another floor. My arm healed by the time the second attack came, causing it to break all over again. I lost track of how many floors we'd been kicked through because of the pain. I blacked out for a few seconds in between a few blows, but wasn't spared for long. When I awoke from my few brief seconds of darkness, I was still frozen and unable to move. Looking up, I could see the lights from the floor above we'd crashed through. The false Manifesto could have kicked us right through the ship. It either didn't want to sink the ship by smashing a hole into the bottom of it, or it was too tired for another massive attack. I felt my arm healing again as I screamed inside my head from the pain. I fought my stiff muscles trying to move. I felt as if I could just move, I would heal faster. No human should ever experience their body being smashed so many times. Being able to live through such damage wasn't really all that great at all. I was on the verge of giving up. I couldn't handle any of this. I should have died instead of dealing with a world I didn't understand, and taking a job I wasn't mentally prepared for. If I didn't hear Fex in the back of my mind, I don't think I would still be here. He sounded so hurt. Fighting to move, I flicked my eyes over to what Fex saw. The real Manifesto was chained to a pipe a few feet from us. The iron dug into his small body, his little bird-like feet dangling off the ground. Fex was adamant on calling the ship demon an associate. Creatures of the night did not have friends. But you didn't call an associate a nickname like that. And you weren't torn to pieces on the inside when you saw them chained up. This mirror creature hurt both Manifesto and now Fex. I could not forgive it for that. The reflection of Fex's friend walked over and dug its claws into my gut. It hurt like hell, but the anger inside my chest overpowered it. Whatever power held me in place snapped. The creature did not expect it, and it stumbled back startled as I bolted upright. With a scream of rage and pain, I swung at it, punching the small creature as hard as I could. It flew back, crashing against a pipe, cracking it all the way up to the ceiling. I should have kept attacking it, but I could not stand seeing Manifesto tied up any longer. Rushing over, I started pulling away at the chains, attempting to untangle them from around him. The black chains burned at my hands, and I couldn't even imagine how much they hurt being wrapped so tightly around the small demon. I made some progress before the false one recovered. It grabbed at my back, claws digging in, but I didn't pause in my efforts. My clothing and skin were being torn into, and I still refused to stop. I was going to save the one we came for, no matter what. The more it thrashed, the more I pulled at the chains, trying to get them undone. It grabbed me and tossed me clear across the room. I felt something break when my body hit the steel floor, but I got right back up to run back to both the ship demons. I was almost there. I just needed to get a few more loops off. Without any hesitation, I sidestepped an attack and punched the false creature aside again. It too recovered quickly from being tossed aside. My hands on the chains, it came at me, claws first aiming for my head. If it dug its claws in, I might not make it. I didn't know if my brain could survive being mauled by talons. Just before those black razor-sharp claws found their way into my eye sockets, we both got blasted back. Slamming against a steel pipe hard, I sputtered trying to recover. In my hand, I was still holding a long length of the iron chain that had been holding down the real Manifesto. The rest he burst through using his own power. The ship demon might be small, but he was strong. Even a dense human like myself could see that. His face still covered with the veil, he floated a few feet off the ground, bits of iron falling off his clothing. He was also pissed. I didn't need to see an expression to know that. The false one didn't even try to fight it. It saw the real one free and tried to scurry away. The fight between them lasted 3 seconds, if that. Manifesto was suddenly right behind it, holding it by the ankle. It slammed the creature against the steel floor of the ship so hard the reflection broke away, revealing how the creature really looked. With another whip of his small arm, he threw the creature against the ground so hard the entire ship rumbled. Cracks appeared and water started to seep in. It happened so quickly I couldn't do anything. I just sat with my mouth open. I really hoped Manifesto never heard I thought he was just a little guy earlier. He let go of the mirror's leg, arms to his side, fuming. He didn't utter a sound, but I could almost see smoke pouring from his hidden ears. The mirror creature had half its head smashed in. It was human-shaped, but covered in jagged reflective mirror pieces. A long tail made of more pieces was nearly broken off from the assault. 2 triangles of evenly shaped mirror shards stood out from its head, almost looking like cartoonish cat ears. Manifesto finally noticed me. He pointed a finger in my direction, and I nearly let out a scared yelp. Then he pointed towards the mirror and made a twirling motion with his finger. I didn't understand for a few seconds that felt like years. Finally, it clicked. He wanted me to wrap the creature up in the chain I was still holding. When I did, water was up to my shins. This boat was going to sink, and I still didn't know how to get back to the real one. Apparently, I didn't need to figure it out. Manifesto floated up so that he was at the same height as me. He placed a hand on my shoulder and pushed down. My entire body sank into an endless, cold darkness. I just kept sinking, unable to breathe. It was a miracle I remembered to keep a grip on the chain in my hand, bringing the mirror with me. When I finally came out of the all-encompassing darkness, I fell, hitting a familiar ground. I was getting really sick of falling into places. Red carpet and gold trimming. On my back, I was looking up at the curved mirror ceiling of the main hallway. The mirror fell beside me, breaking off more pieces of its body. I was looking at the mirror above, but it didn't reflect myself back. Instead, I saw an image of the ship being torn to pieces by a figure too small to see. Cracks started to appear in the ceiling and seawater leaked through.
It appears the mirror can create small pocket spaces in order to hide inside. It must be able to go between the pocket space and the real space. We must have been trapped inside when it kicked us into the ocean,
Fex said inside my head. I stayed on my back, looking up, watching an entire ship be completely destroyed. Manifesto is small, but really strong. How did the fake even manage to tie him up in the first place? I asked, too tired to move.
The chain can bind most creatures of the night. We cannot touch it, but humans can. The mirror most likely used the reflection of a human to bind Manifesto. Because you are still mostly human, you can touch it yourself without too much damage. I assume the mirror did all this to take humans, without having the blame put upon itself. I've heard they slowly drain their human victims, so they may still be alive.
If the missing people were still on the fake ship, they couldn't be. It was breaking apart so badly that no one could still be alive on that thing. My thinking was proved wrong when Manifesto came dropping down through the mirrored ceiling, a stack of people on his back. After he came through, the image of the destroyed ship disappeared, and the ceiling returned to normal. I rushed over, helping him set the group on the ground. They were all alive. Some looking as if they might die at any moment, though. Each were pale and bone-thin. I didn't know what I could do to help. If I could do something, I wasn't needed. Manifesto raised his head up at me and placed a hand on my arm. I dreaded what he was about to do and felt the awful feeling of falling again. I was getting really, really sick of falling into places. This time, I fell onto a bed and bounced off of it. Groaning, I stayed on the floor, giving up on doing anything else for a while. The room I was so rudely tossed into belonged to one of the couples. A letter from Silverman appeared on my chest while I took a quick nap. I hadn't sent any information off to him about the job. Either he just somehow knew, or Manifesto told him. It explained I was free to use the room for the last 3 days, and to meet him when the ship docked. The couples were under the ship demon's care and recovering. The mirror that caused so much trouble wasn't going to be moving anytime soon, so we could hand him over to Silverman when we saw him. After everything, I needed to relax for a bit. I spent nearly an entire day sleeping. The experience wore me out. Fex was starving by the time I woke up, and I let him take over and go get something to eat. This improved body of mine did have some nice features. We could eat non-stop if we wanted to. Any food was burned up completely, and the energy was added to an internal source I was not aware of before. It was nice being able to eat as much steak as I wanted, but needed to switch buffets and restaurants when people started to stare. There were some downsides to this body. Taking a break and eating, I ordered a drink. The first one did not go down right at all. I thought it was just the type of beer not agreeing with me, and I ordered another. Drinking the second one was my downfall. My new and improved body could not handle alcohol. I was so sick from 2 drinks, I wasted the rest of the trip inside the borrowed room. Fex had no idea this would happen, and we felt sorry for each other. I was never a big drinker to start with, but I still mourned the loss. When the ship came into port, I was well enough to walk off on my own 2 feet. The mirror was shoved inside a rolling suitcase away from human eyes. Barely off the ship, I saw an unmistakable face of Silverman. He spotted us and waved us over. I gave him the suitcase and a very abridged version of our trip.
No one died on your first job. I'm impressed. I didn't have much faith in you. In facts, I have full confidence. But on principle, I don't expect anything of humans.
Silverman said with a smile that made me want to punch him. Those 4 people are going to make it? They look pretty rough.
As long as they stay on the ship, they'll heal up just fine. We're making arrangements for that to happen now. If they leave, they are no longer under Manifesto's protection, and would die. He's doing everything he can to avoid that. He does take this job very seriously, after all. Speak of the devil.
Something thudded into my back around waist height. Looking behind me, I expected to see the small ship demon, but I saw a boy I didn't recognize. He wore a big black sun hat, which his black hair matched. His face was half covered with a scarf that did not suit the hot sunny weather. He stood wearing black flip-flops and shorts and a t-shirt, getting up ready to headbutt me again. Mana? I asked. He had waist-long black hair. Who else would this be besides the little ship demon? Fex nudged me to take over. I knew he wanted to talk with his friend. We didn't see him for a few days, and they should catch up a little. The moment he took over, Manifesto sensed it. He went over to a round, short stone pillar meant for ships to tie ropes on. He placed one arm on it, and Fex went over with our body, doing the same and grabbing the boy's hand. I really hoped any onlookers thought the man having an arm wrestling match with a child was a relative playing around, and throwing the match on purpose. I watched, unable to do anything. Horrified, the small boy pinned our arm down and flinched at a creaking sound.
Do you think you understand Fex a little better?
Silverman asked. I'd assumed no one could see me when I wasn't in control of my body. Silverman was different. He spoke directly to me, instead of Fex, who lifted Manifesto on the pillar. He took his hat off. He then started to braid the boy's long hair, a humiliating punishment for the loser of the match. At least, I hoped. Watching the both of them, I thought over not only Silverman's question, but my own future. I would keep coming across monsters. My body would be torn apart by those creatures, and I could live through that to endure it again and again. I would change. During this trip, I was against harming others and so afraid of taking a life. Someday, if I kept going on this path, I would become the same, if not worse, than the monsters around me. I would get blood on my hands. My future held pain and sacrifices I couldn't even fathom. Watching as Mana admired his victory braid and smiling under his scarf, I decided on my answers. Yes, I did understand why we did this job. All the pain we suffered through and the pain in the future was all utterly worth it. Just for that small, hidden smile. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. Today's video was supported by patrons like Mark from Earth, Crimson Muse, Joy Burton, Diane Showers, Mark Sewall, Cheryl James, Pick Your Sticker, Teddy Dog, Clue404, Mamakato, Dante Kincaid, Zarin Ray, Angela Donovan, Blarian50, Devin Kyle, Timothy Baird, Ajeti, Bert Turner, Bajani Espinal, Michael Pierce, Big Joe, Carrie Harkonnen, LaDonna Spivey, Scott Tanaka, Tom Stewart, Sherman Davis, Bryce Shelton, Susan McClendon, Elise Batiste, Lisa and the Cult Jam, Open Circuit, Fabulavore, Raymond Jaggers, That Darn Fox, Raison Detra, Kai Gaming 99, Wendy Burns, The Wendigo, Michael Squishy Park, The Gemstar, Vault 77 Citizen, Puppy Dan, Clovis Wolf, Elder Gelm, Derek Prey, Elder Being, KC Hawaii, Rob T, Tragic Mermaid, Darren Fishnaller, Cloves Zanoya Harris, Roe Underwood, Florida Man Luke, Bethany's Mom, Winter's Kiss, Sam Brook, The White Stag, Corey Connection, No Name, Marta Cara, Professor Elm, Kathy Barrickman, Cybard Sands, Steve Hennessy, Melanie Sanders, The Archivist, Rob Smith, Term 4, Naz Razio, J. David Wellman Jr., Parker Lewis, Monica Moya, D-Master 311, Britt the Alchemist, Taylor the Fox, Holly Howarth, Julia McWilliam, Lilypad, Serena and Jesse, Diego Rodriguez, Oziel Perez, Wolfcat 128, Kamisha Coffin, Jen Scott, Avanza, Lucian Haran Allen, Hunter Nystrom, Tyson Harris, Ricky Monroe, Just Gaming, Mastiff Nomad, James Lowe, and Alabama Nana. If you'd like to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Group Horror. As a patron, you get access to bonus videos and content, as well as a Discord channel. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. It really does help out a lot. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.